And I think what DSRP reminds you of is that's always true. That's always true. You can always bet on that being true. That if you find somebody, I guarantee you, if you find somebody whose job it is to make these kinds of pens, that they have distinctions that you've never heard of before for what this edge is called and what the standards or the specs are for that, for the different types of liquid that go into the ink and the fiber that goes into the end of this tip.
Yeah.
I mean, they have distinctions for all that stuff. I don't know what they are, but I guarantee you, if you talk to somebody whose job it is to design these, they know. They know.
Yeah.
So every single thing that you can think of has a fine grain world that's equivalent to 7,500 types of apples. And then there's experts on one of those types.
Yeah.
Who's the world expert on one of those types of apples. And that person knows more about that and is making so many fine-grained distinctions around that type of apple. And that is true about everything. And DSRP kind of predicts that being true and helps you realize that that's true.
Which means you can always be looking for more if it's important at that moment to look for more.
Yeah.
You can also, if it's helpful, you can go up the level to fruit.
Yep.
Because if the conversation is not really about different types of fruit, but it's at the fruit level, you can go up there and stay at that level.
Yeah, in fact, sometimes we'll say, and when people are conflicting, we'll say, go to the fruit level. Like if you're conflicting at this level, try to go up some number of levels until you no longer conflict. And then you'll understand something about where the conflict lies. Right? Because somewhere at some level change, you're conflicting. But then if you go one level up from that level, you're no longer conflicting.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
So we always say, go to the fruit level.
Which means find that place of commonality first, and then drill down and figure out where the disagreement is.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think that we're disagreeing at the fruit level.
Right.
But we're actually disagreeing at a part of one fruit.
Totally.
And that's why I think we miss each other so much in 100%. Conversations.
Most of the worst arguments happen, I'm going to use a metaphor here, between like Gala and Braeburn apples, right?
Yeah.
They're just like, you're not a Gala, you're not a Braeburn. And you're like, you're both apples, man. You're literally both apples. Can you just take it easy? You're making applesauce all over the place. That's what happens with apple wars. So, that's where the fights happen. The fights happen between people that are more alike, right? More alike than different.